for legal immigrants, including DACA and TPS recipients. I also think this has hurt our reputation around the world and may cause problems in the future with us recruiting people to come here to work, even if it's not for admission, for residency, but just to work. I see no net benefit to deporting these many people. I think the evidence is pretty clear on that. The best economic studies show that undocumented immigration has little to no effect on U.S. wages. Immigrants are less likely to commit crime. And while there are localized costs, that sometimes in neighborhoods with a higher immigrant population, there sometimes are higher localized costs, but that's generally just education, and I'm fine paying for that. In conclusion, I think Trump's mass deportation agenda would inflict enormous economic, fiscal, and human harm while failing to deliver the promised benefits. It would make America poorer, less safe, and less true to what many of us perceive its values to be. And then one last thing, I do know from watching YouTube videos about how to win a debate that sometimes you must intimidate your opponent. And so, Andrew. Yeah.
Wait, is it an olive jar or a pickle jar?
No, I don't have olives. It was not a one-to-one comparison.
Would have been better if the jar was sealed too.
I would have been able to open it, and then I would have looked like an idiot, Andrew.
Yeah, those are
had to look tougher. Yeah.
Thank you, RTP and Andrew TP.
About to turn my YouTube
so,
live chat to subscribers only now.
These are kind of very basic leftist arguments. Most of them are pretty easy to refute. Kind of off the top immediately. Because you have a positive position, I didn't feel the necessity to create an elongated opening statement because I'm here to create refutations for your claims, not vice versa. As you have the positive claim, we should allow undocumented workers to stay. There was a whole bunch missing from that, though, and I feel like we should go into this. So, first he brings up the economy. This is kind of the idea you'll hear the most from progressives is that there's a lot of kind of economic benefits which come into the United States from undocumented immigrants. They never tell you the other side of that, which is that they're effectively creating a slave class. How do we know that they're effectively creating a slave class? Well, because my opponent literally just said so. He said that there's states which collect millions upon millions of dollars in Social Security taxes from people who will never be the beneficiaries of said Social Security. Now, far be it from me, in a way, me to ask my opponent, how is it that the government is collecting Social Security taxes from people who don't have Social Security numbers? That's a very strange phenomenon, isn't it? Illegal, no Social Security number, yet able to collect Social Security taxes. Well, that's bizarre. And then at the same token, my opponent would probably be the first type to say, well, they're not over here doing identity theft in mass and stealing people's Social Security numbers and things like this. Why would he say that? Oh,
good morning, Shadow.
For millions of dollars in Social Security taxes. A bit bizarre from my end that there's no identity theft going on, yet now the state's able to do that. Super weird. I'm sure he can give us an accounting for that, though, except he won't. By the way,
what you up to, man?
Inflation would lead to a contraction of 3% of the GDP. I would even be willing to grant this just for the sake of argument. Who gives a shit? Even if it does, we make up for it in the act of social cohesion. This very idea that this is such a dividing force in the American public that we need to create some sort of window dressing for immigrants to come in a very unfettered way, including illegally, and somehow that's going to unite us when we just got done watching the riots happen in California, which I'm sure my opponents will say, no, those weren't riots, even though we literally watched them right here live every single night on 10 plus cameras, literally watching as they were doing battle with ICE and the military, throwing firebombs at them and everything else. He'll say, well, those weren't illegals. Those must have just been, domestically born Mexicans waving the Mexican flag, and it had nothing to do with illegal immigrants, even though the entire thing was about illegal immigrants and ICE doing their job and collecting them and sending them outside of the nation, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. He says that what about job losses for native born? The thing that's really interesting about this is if you were to get rid of all immigrant labor, the slave labor class, which is existing on these farms, which is paying apparently millions of dollars to our state, local, and even federal government through Social Security, how is it that that would actually create job decreases for the United States? I have no idea how my opponent will reconcile this position. Seems to me like you have a supply and demand issue. If it is the case, the supply of workers goes down, the demand for workers goes up, thus wages for naturalized Americans to do those jobs would necessarily increase. They have no answer for this as well. He also points out that millions come here as moral argument who have undocumented parents, and their parents have the child here, and that Trump's policies are breaking up families. While I can grant that this is true, that's not really a moral argument. That's just a descriptor. He's just describing a phenomenon, not saying why it's actually immoral. He says, well, it's because it breaks up families. And it's like, okay, so does sending people to jail for crimes, that breaks up families. So does creating economic conditions in which one parent has to work abroad, that breaks up families. There's all sorts of ways that we can construe that you can break up a family, which is not immoral. When it comes to this, though, he just asserts, well, it's somehow immoral that if both of your parents are here illegally and they have a child here who then immediately gets birthright citizenship, that you're breaking up the family. That actually would be a better argument for why you should give no birthright citizenship at all to children who are born here domestically from parents who don't belong here. Why? Because then you wouldn't break the family up, right? Then the child would have to necessarily go with the parents, which is exactly what they should be doing anyway. Instead, they use these children as linchpins. Never for that, by the way. Even the Supreme Court ruling, which is pointing to this, there was never an intention ever for there to be people who did not have U.S. citizenship, who could have a child on our continent, literally, in North America and in the United States, or any of the other places which are United States adjacent. Sometimes this is even argued right down to the province, that there are some places like Chile or things like this, which could be loosely associated with the United States, where a person could get citizenship that way. I've even seen leftists argue for that. Now, my opponent didn't, and so for the purposes of not strawmanning him, I'm just pointing out, why in the world would you want to have a system in which you could have a child on our soil, right, and then they are declared an American citizen when their parents shouldn't even be here in the first place? That's insane. I would actually like him to tell me why it would be immoral to not grant them citizenship and rather send them back with their parents. That seems like the most moral thing that you can do. I would actually like to start there. He points out the moral and humanitarian harms. He says in protection for DACA immigrants and like I just said, birthright citizenship. When it came to DACA, so what? You implement a U.S. policy. We don't like how the policy turns out, so we change the policy. We do this all the time. Even if it's the case that Republicans want to end anything that has to do with DACA or making sure that people have a pathway to citizenship who aren't supposed to be here, I'd also like to hear the moral argument for that. He just asserted that this is a moral argument. He just asserts, well, this is bad because it's bad because you think it's fucking bad. Well, that's great, but that's not justification for why it's actually bad. So we can go through all of these things in sequence, but I'd actually like to start with this idea of the morality here when it comes to birthright citizenship and what actual problems are there. And then I'm happy to, from there, move into these like economic quandaries that he thinks he has. So whenever you guys are ready, I'm happy to dive right into it.
Thank you so kindly, Andrew. And as a kind reminder to the chat, of course, this is our grand finale, which means we will go into open panel post-debate. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through our discussion, read and respond to your kind super chats, and then we're going to open up the open panel dumpster fire. Gentlemen, the floor is open to you.
Do you want to maybe restate the question where you wanted to start at, Andrew?
Yeah, why is it actually immoral to not grant birthright citizenship to the children of people who are in the country illegally? Why is that actually immoral?
I never said that.
So then I'm sorry, so what's the immoral argument?
I didn't make any moral arguments.
You did. You said, in quotes, this is actually immoral. The moral argument which I will be making, and then you went into DACA and how we're breaking families up and how that's immoral. So can you
No, and I said that there are Americans who view it as a moral or humanitarian harm, and then I brought up due process violations, ending protections for illegal immigrants, and our international reputation.
Okay, so let's make sure that we get this right. It's not actually immoral for us to end birthright citizenship?
No.
Okay, great. So then when Trump moves to end birthright citizenship, your only objection is that it's going to hurt you economically?
Yeah, I think it's just a dumb decision.
Because it's going to hurt you economically.
Probably not going to hurt me economically, but I think overall
It's going to hurt somebody economically.
I think overall the country has an impact on the country, and I don't see a reason why we should do that. Yeah.
Okay, I see. So it's not immoral to end birthright citizenship. The only reason that you don't want to end it is because you think that that's going to create more economic problems for more American citizens. Is that right?
I honestly don't care if we end birthright citizenship. I just don't want it done by executive order. I think it should be done through Congress.
Well, it's not being done through executive order.
Well, that's what he tried to do, right?
No, what he did was he used an executive order to get the ball rolling so it got in front of the Supreme Court, which is what he said from the very beginning.
Fine, but I still think we should do it through Congress, which we're going to have to do, right?
And where's it being done? And where's it being done?
Through Congress.
Okay, well then I don't even understand that objection.
I don't have an objection to it. I said I don't care if we do it.
So then what's your issue here with the supposed humanitarian harms? Why did you bring up DACA, humanitarian harms, the
Well, why are you talking about birthright citizenship? That's not DACA.
I'm sorry, what is DACA?
DACA is what a deferred action. It wasn't necessarily birthright citizenship, right?
What is it?
It's also people who were brought here as children.
Uh-huh. And it's a pathway to citizenship for them, right?
Yeah, that's not the same. I don't view that as the same as
Why should we give that to them? Why is it
Because I think it makes sense. Because I think it makes sense.
Yeah, but why is it immoral not to?
I don't care about morals.
Getting
You don't care about morals. Okay,
No,
you have no
no
position on
position.
morals. Great. Okay,
waving.
so it's not immoral for us to end
How's it going?
DACA. It's not immoral for us to end birthright citizenship.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So
I just think it's dumb.
okay, you just think
it's dumb.
you just
By the way,
think it's dumb.
I do want to point out real quick that you seem to maybe be having a different debate than me.
I don't think I am.
You said that
my
my
it together.
well, just real quick. You said that my claim is that we should allow immigrants to stay. What I said is Trump deportations do more harm than good. That's my claim.
Is that immoral?
I don't care about morality.
What the
It's
fuck?
irrelevant
Okay,
to me.
but I'm going to try to explain something to you so that you understand. It's very important that you understand this.
Okay.
If you make this claim that the reason we should do X is because if we don't, it's stupid and bad. It's bad to do X. It's not good. Are you saying that it would be bad, or you're just neutral on the fact that we could cost ourselves 3% of the GDP?
Yeah, I think I laid that out. Economically, it's a bad idea.
Okay, so then it's immoral.
No, I don't know. It's not based on
Then
morals.
what does fucking bad mean?
Math? I don't
Well,
like the
bad
math. I don't
means
like
math?
I don't like the math on it. I
Can we
don't like
back
the
it
math on
up? Can we back it up? Because harm can dive into.
Well, what does bad mean here?
Concept.
It means the math is negative. That would be
Okay, that
bad.
is, okay, why is that bad though? What makes that bad?
Because I don't like losing money.
I'm sorry, when you say bad, I can grant that there could be two forms of bad.
Sure.
I'm having a bad day, right? That sucks, right? Because I'm having a bad day. That's a common word, a use of the word bad, right? But if I say like murder is bad, I'm saying that that's an immoral thing, right? You would agree with me on that?
Sure, whatever. Whatever.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So when you say that contracting necessarily 3% of the GDP is bad, do you mean as in I'm having a bad day? Or as in this is going to be immoral because the outcomes for people is not going to work out very well?
Neither. You just said you left out one. Like if I make less money, that's bad. But that's not really moral. That's
Like bad is in a bad day?
Sure, it's bad for my finances. Sure.
Okay, so then all you mean by bad here is the same as you would
You
mean
said
with-
bad. You said bad. And I said okay.
No, I
think
asked
the math
you-
is- I said I think the math is bad.
Yeah, so then I didn't say bad, you said bad, right?
I was responding to you saying, but that's fine.
Yeah, so when you say, well, hang on, semantics are super important for debate, and that's why I'm trying to get these things clarified. You may
No,
not
I think
so.
I would like to talk about the. Well, I think what you're trying to do is drag this into a moral argument because I don't
No.
think you have numbers to back up anything.
I'm
you're
just
saying.
starting-
That's why my argument specifically didn't talk about morals, Andrew. I talked about actual data. I'm looking at the economic impact of these people, and you want to talk to me about morals. I'm not interested in that conversation.
Well, can I try to explain to you and give you an expression of why this is so silly to me? If the economic data that you want backed up, even if I was to grant that you're completely correct, but you say it's not a moral proposition, why the fuck should I even care?
You don't have to care.
Why should anybody care?
You don't have to care.
No,
I'm not asking. I'm not. We showed up for a debate. I gave the prompt: Trump deportations do more harm than good. I didn't sign a debate.
Is harm okay? Is harm bad?
In this case, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, so harm is immoral.
I don't care about morals, dude. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want to do.
Because I'm just trying to figure out what you mean by bad.
No, what you're trying to do is drag me into a moral argument because
no, I'm just trying to figure out what you mean by bad.
You don't know what morals
is based
are.
on your morals. My position is based on that, which is why I don't have like this universal look. A lot of the things that you accuse me of, you're like, here's what people on the left do. You thought I was going to be against birthright citizenship. You think I'm against deportations. You think that I am pro illegal immigration. I'm not pro any of those things. It seems like you didn't listen to a word I said in my opening statement and just decided from the get-go that you were going to have a moral discussion here.
No, I went down each point that you made and gave a refutation in my own intro.
No, you missed most of them.
When you're discussing this, though, listen, it's not a gotcha. I'm not even looking for the moral discussion. All I'm looking for right now is to clear up semantics so that we understand we're not speaking past each other. If you're just coming in to say, oh, the numbers look good on our side, great, who cares? That's not what the argument is about. The argument's about whether it does more harm than good. So when we say things like a harm principle or a good principle, right? If you're neutral on the fact that if there's economic output, which is problematic, I win the debate by default because you haven't demonstrated there's any harm, because harm's not bad. Or if you say good, when you say good, I assume that you mean that this is something which is positive, the opposite of harm, and so that's a more moral proposition. So either of those things, more harm, when you say harm and good, you mean moral, immoral. If you mean something else by harm or good, then I want to get those semantics cleared up so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I cleared that. This is like the 5th time I've cleared it up. Right? Economically, it's bad for our country. I think it does harm to our economy.
Bad meaning what?
Bad meaning the numbers are negative.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell me anything. So anytime numbers
you want me to tell you?
Is anytime numbers are negative, is that bad?
No, negative numbers.
Okay, right. Sure. So the negative numbers don't just mean bad. So when you say bad,
in this case, it's
yeah. What makes that bad though?
Because there's less money circulating in our economy.
Yeah, but that's just giving me one step further in the descriptor, not telling me what bad actually means.
I'm not interested in a semantic debate about what bad means.
It's not a semantic debate. It's clarifying what you mean by the thing.
You're talking about the harm principle. You're setting parameters on this debate.
What's the debate
so that we can.
Yeah. What's the debate topic?
Not what is the harm principle. There's lots of definitions.
What is the debate topic? Just tell me what the debate topic is.
Deportations do more harm than good.
Is it appropriate for me to ask you what harm and good mean when a prompt is specifically alluding to both of those things?
Yeah, I think that it's not the harm principle, though. You can use the word harm in many different ways.
And those are the ways I'm trying to get.
And I'm saying that this is a way that it is deliberately inflicted on our economy. Deliberately inflicted.
Okay.
That is the definition of harm.
Yeah. So, do you realize like immediately the problem that you have here?
No.
So, well, I'll explain it to you. So when you say this has nothing to do with some principle or anything like that. When you say more harm than good, you're saying that there's a negative there, and the negative outcome, I would guess, is the harm, right?
Yeah, well, in this case, I think that we are deliberately inflicting damage to our economy, and the outcome of that is a less stable economy.
And that's bad.
Yeah, sure.
So that would be immoral.
Right, it's immoral.
Okay, so it's immoral. So when you say harm in this case, you're saying this thing is immoral.
I'm not saying any of that. You are. If whatever we have to do to move on from this shit, that would be great.
I just need you to not.
I know it's frustrating because you want to have a moral debate. I'd like you to outline anything I said, and we can discuss whether it's good or bad.
Okay, I'll explain this to you so that you understand. Pull up the equivocation fallacy.
No.
Okay, do you need me to
Pull up the definition of harm.
Yeah, I'll pull up the definition of harm.
Okay.
There's going to be a multitude of definitions, but I'll
Great. So why are you picking harm principle instead of one of the definitions I'm using of harm? It's my claim.
Yeah.
It's me telling you what my claim
Yeah, I
is.
know what your claim is, but your claim has to have meaning to me. So the thing is, I'm going to pull up. I'll pull up your definition or all definitions of harm. harm. You can pick one and find that.
I just did. I told you it was deliberately inflicted destruction of our economy.
So that you understand the equivocation fallacy, I'll read it for you verbatim. These aren't even gotchas. It's not even trickery. I'm just trying to get the semantics out of the way as we get to the debate. The equivocation is the use of ambiguous language to conceal the truth or avoid committing to a specific stance. That's what equivocation is. It involves using words or phrases with multiple meanings in a way that can mislead the listener or the reader. So the reason
I just told you what the meaning was. I just told you times what my meaning was.
Can you just chill out? Just chill out.
But this is silly.
It's not silly. It's just that you're not used to actually having to commit to your stance. So equivocation is the use of ambiguous language to conceal the truth or avoid committing to a specific stance. I'm saying that you're guilty right now of using an equivocation fallacy in your arguments because you won't make such a firm stance on what harm means.
I disagree.
Okay, then what does harm mean?
Deliberately inflicted destruction to our economy.
Okay. That's all harm means?
In this case, that's what it means. Harm can mean different things at different times, but right now I'm explaining how I'm using the word.
Okay. And if you're deliberately hurting the economy, should that be avoided?
In my opinion, yeah.
Okay, in your opinion, yes, it should be avoided. Is that because it's going to have negative outcomes on people?
Yes.
Okay, yes, it will have negative outcomes. Yes, it will have negative outcomes. And are negative outcomes a thing which we should avoid?
I think when we can, sure.
Okay, negative outcomes should be avoided. So, negative outcomes avoided. So, to summarize your position on harm, deliberately hurting the economy should be avoided because it will have negative outcomes. Negative outcomes should be avoided. So,
when we can.
Okay, I'll even add that just to just be super charitable when we can. So does that mean that if we're not avoiding negative outcomes when we can, that that's bad?
Sure.
Okay, so it's bad not to do that. It's bad not to do that. When I say bad here, do we mean that this is immoral? In other words, is it immoral to deliberately hurt the economy because that should be avoided because it'll have negative outcomes, and negative outcomes should be avoided when we can?
I don't know that has anything to do with morals.
You don't know that it has anything to do with morals? I'm sorry.
I don't know if that has anything to do with
and
more.
family fun bring non-stop excitement as winter heats up in Reno town. Carve a path through pristine powder, then warm to the neon glow of downtown, where shows, museums, and dining keep the energy moving. In a city where natural beauty meets vibrant culture, you're never far from the action. Epic outdoors, endless experiences. Discover no limits at visitRenoTahoe.com.
Switch to TurboTax and file your own taxes free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file with TurboTax Do It Yourself by February 28th. Download now.
I'm fucking working out here, bastard.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Home security super.
I'm sorry, so it's not a moral proposition to say that we ought to avoid X thing.
I keep telling you,
because
none of
it's
these are
bad.
moral propositions.
They're all moral propositions, every one of them.
How are they moral propositions?
Because when you say bad, you're making a moral entanglement there. You're saying that because the outcome is
That wasn't
negative.
moral?
Should an outcome which is negative be avoided?
No, I think the problem that we have here, Andrew, is that you think that I'm going to extend my position on immigration across the board, and that I'm always going to choose, and I think this is the problem with this debate. You think I'm always just going to choose to never do anything that has a negative outcome. I think in this instance, it's pretty easy to look at what's happening. It's pretty easy to say, where's the benefit? I don't know of any. You can maybe tell me what the benefits might be. I don't see any benefits to mass immigration, especially when there's sensible solutions like granting amnesty to people who are here, whose only crime is being here illegally, who have been working for decades. I think that there are legitimate solutions, and it feels like you want to have a moral, philosophical discussion instead.
This moral, what you're making there is a moral claim, that the thing should be avoided because it has a negative impact on X group. Therefore, how do you get around the fact that that's a moral claim exactly?
I think very few things that happen inside of a country where there is a government, where no matter what side you take, there's going to be a negative outcome to somebody. Right, so I'm looking at what do I think affects the
Yeah,
greater
so
good.
then I would just counter and say, I can even agree that any type of policy you have will have some disaffected people from that policy, whether they're the rich or the middle, but you would just say that that's a moral entanglement, that it is a moral entailment, that if the rich suffer so that, 10,000 poor people get their meals, you would just say that that's a moral trade-off, right? But these are all so these are all moral propositions, so I'm just trying to get to the heart of what good and bad, in this case, more harm than good. We're trying to figure out what the good is from your view. What is the good? Is the good GDP? Is that what the moral proposition is? More GDP good? Is the good social cohesion? What is the good?
Do you want me to read the whole opening statement again?
If you can read in the opening statement what the good is.
Yeah, so it protects us from GDP growth. It keeps wages at least stationary. There's $300 billion or so in spending power that is immediately taken away if you get rid of all those people. You're going to lose, especially in rural communities that require migrant labor, both legal and illegal. That's drying up now. So I live in Arizona. Down in Yuma, Arizona, they're having a hard time finding even legal laborers who used to come here because they're afraid.
Yeah,
I think it hurts farmers, and I think that pushes us more towards factory farming, which I think is a problem for all Americans. I think it's a problem for all of our food supply to have that fall into the hands of factory farmers.
Sure. So you're giving me descriptors of things which you consider to be problematic, but you haven't actually told me what the good is that we're supposed to be going for here. What's the good? What does good mean here?
What is the good?
Yeah, because more harm.
What is the
Now we've
good?
determined that harm is deliberately hurting the economy, I guess for this specific instance, and that should be avoided. And yes, it'll have a negative outcome, which is why it should be avoided. Negative outcomes should be avoided when we can, and it's bad to do that. That's your claim on harm. I'm just trying to figure out your claim on good. What is the good?
Well, I don't think it's doing any good. I don't think these deportations are doing any good.
Well, that's just evading what the question is. What is the good?
How would I tell you what the good is if I don't think it's doing any good?
Because the proposition here, well, just wait a second. This is bizarre to me that you would state that you don't think a thing is doing any good, but won't tell me what the good is.
Well, I don't know what that. I don't know.
You don't know what that
would,
means?
No, I don't know
You
what.
don't
I
know
don't
what
even,
good means?
I don't even know what their intention is.
So you don't know what good is, you don't know what bad is, you don't know what harm is?
How would I tell you what the good is if I don't think it's doing any good?
I don't know. The proposition is good or harm. So I don't know what debate you're prepared for, but it was, does it do more harm than good? So tell me, sir.
I don't know what you're
the fuck is
prepared
the
for,
good?
I don't think there is any good.
You don't think there is any good. So,
No.
so then it's just, does it do more harm than nothing?
Yeah, well, I think that. Wait, why does it have? Why can't it be? Why does it have to be good here? Why does it
Because
have
you
to be
just
good
said
here?
there is no, because that's the proposition.
Why-
Does
I
it
don't
do
think there's
more
any good.
harm than good? And your response
One is-
is,
one is
your
good,
response is there
zero.
is no good.
It can do zero good.
Okay, but what's the prompt? What's the prompt?
Fuck, are we gonna do this all? Are we gonna do semantics?
Are we gonna
we
do
making
this the
semantics
whole
clear?
time?
Yes.
Are we gonna
I don't
debate
care.
the whole
But what I-
debate,
Well, I'm
man?
glad you don't care, but
Are
I
we really
care.
gonna
So what
debate
is
the whole
good?
debate?
This is like the dumbest conversation.
You want
I've
me
ever
to
had.
meet you?
I
You
want
want
to
me
talk
to?
about immigration and not what
Yeah.
fucking words mean.
So then stop equivocating. Stop equivocating then.
Gentlemen,
Jesus
if I can maybe kind of pry in for a moment, maybe offer a thought process, RTP, in terms of the harm concept here. Like for instance, if you have a company and they're running a product and they have a recall on it, right? Because things are going bad. Like what they do to even think about what that recall would be, is it more money to pay out for lawsuits that are going to come our way, or is it kind of cheaper in essence to recall the item and replace all the stuff? And that comes through like the general harm of things.
So what would be the good there?
So the good would be people get their shit fixed, or people get payouts for having, they get in a car accident because the brakes don't work, right? So there are good pieces built in, but also there's the harm principle that's built in behind it. It's the ethical standard in any like economical stance, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we want more money, but ethically, are we good?
So what if the people don't get their car fixed or they don't get their money back? Then is there a good there?
How do, if they don't know about it, or what?
The harm, right, was the destruction to their vehicle, right?
Right, that would be.
And if nobody
your
fixes it,
harm.
if nobody fixes the vehicle or pays them damages, where's the good?
The good would be the company didn't lose any money.
Okay, so the good here is that Donald Trump gets
But
to.
then, is it
fulfill a
good?
Unless that's bad.
It
Well,
is
Donald
bad.
Okay, the
So-
Donald Trump gets to fulfill a campaign promise. There's my good then.
And so that's where I say, like, there are a lot of ethics to economical stances, and I think that's maybe what Andrew's trying to poke at.
In this
correct me if
case,
I'm
I'm not even attempting to do that. I'm not even attempting to get into the ethics. I'm just simply trying to make sure that we don't equivocate. Equivocation being the use of ambiguous language where you mean something by it, I don't mean. I mean something by it, you don't mean. Right now, I don't even know what you mean by these terms because the entire time you've been yelling at me that you don't want to clarify what any of them mean. And that to me is absurd. We're here to have a debate. I need to know exactly what you mean by the terms in the debate proposition, harm or good. Hang on. In this case, I'm simply asking you, now that we have literally a definition for what you consider harm to be, and I've read it out to you, agreed to it multiple times, I'm just asking for the same standard for what good is.
So the good would be that Donald Trump gets to fulfill a campaign promise then.
Does that mean all good? So when you
Jesus
say,
Christ, bro, what the fuck?
yeah, I don't know what you're laughing about. This is how you debate.
I'm laughing at this.
And-
I think this is ridiculous. Like I think this
You
is
can think
crazy.
it's ridiculous. and
I
you
would
can think
love
it's
to. I would
crazy.
love to at some point talk about immigration.
I would love to at some point get you to
All right.
clarify what you mean
So
by
good
the
is to
terms.
be desired or approved of. The desire in this case would be Donald Trump fulfilling a campaign promise. Now I've used the word good correctly and told you what I mean by it. I've used the word harm correctly and told you what we mean by it. Now is it possible that we can talk about
Yeah.
immigration?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that that we're clear on both these terms you agree
Thank
to.
you.
That harms deliberately hurting the economy, and that should be avoided, and that it will have negative outcomes, and negative outcomes should be avoided when we can, and that's bad, and that's what you mean by harm, and that's what you mean by bad, and good to you just means to be desired or approved of.
Neat.
Is that right?
Sure, dude.
Neat,
Okay.
man.
All right. Now we got that cleared up.
Oh,
So what's your
fucking
question?
neat.
I didn't ask you a question. You were asking me questions. I don't have questions.
Oh, I
You haven't,
see.
you haven't made a you haven't really made a position. You strawmanned my entire opening
I don't see how I could have
You
stopped it.
said that you
Did we
brought up
just
Social
steal, man?
Security, and that I would say that that they're not stealing Social Security numbers. Of
Yeah.
course, they're stealing Social Security numbers.
And is that
That's how
to
they-
be,
that's
is
how
that
they
to
pay
be
you for
desired,
Social
is that to be desired or approved of?
No,
So it's not good.
no. That's why I want amnesty to get these people to pay in legally.
So, okay, I see. So the position here is that that's really bad. Then the economic argument in which you're making that there's millions of dollars going to the government, which they don't have to account for, actually is negated instantly because what you really want to do is make sure that the local governments don't get that money anymore unaccounted for, right?
No, incorrect. Because of it's a small minority of people who are using a stolen Social Security number. Most people working illegally don't do it with a stolen Social Security number. So giving those people Social Security numbers would increase the amount they're paying into Social Security and Medicare.
Wait, back up for me.
Okay.
Most people who are paying into Social Security illegally are not using a Social Security number.
Bro, what
No,
the
no, no.
fuck?
Most people
What's that
working
sign?
illegally are not using a Social Security number and therefore not contributing to Social Security.
No comment.
Oh, I see. So then all of the people, so then what you're actually saying is that there's hundreds of millions of dollars which are unaccounted for, which are going to illegal immigrants in the terms of service in the state that we can't even account for because they can't even be tracked through Social Security.
No, I accounted for that when I talked about the money that they're paying into local taxes through things like sales tax, property tax if you're a renter.
Where does that have to do with Social Security
taxes.
though?
It doesn't have anything to do with Social Security.
Yeah, so we're just talking about Social Security. So if it is the case then that you wanted to have a Social
Wait,
Security.
what? Can I ask you then? Maybe I misunderstood your question.
Yeah.
But where's this floating money then? What are you
Well,
talking about?
that's actually what my question is about. I'm asking you specifically, if it is the case, if you're saying that the reason that we need to give these people amnesty is that we can issue them Social Security numbers and thus track their contributions, when I pointed out that doesn't make any sense because then your economic argument was stating that the government should have all this free money that they then don't have to spend back on these immigrants. is negated, you said, no, it's not actually, because there's millions of more dollars that they would be collecting if they gave
Correct.
other immigrants who don't do that
a social security number, and then they would
Yeah.
pay into Social Security, and our receipts for Social Security would go way up.
Then that would be an entailment then, that right now there's millions upon millions of laborers who outnumber the amount of laborers who are spending into the Social Security system, who are getting goods and services, and aren't.
Well, nobody
contributing at all.
that's illegal is getting goods and services from Social Security.
That's not what I said. I didn't say from Social Security, but
So now we're not, well, you just told me we were only talking about Social Security. So
I am.
we were talking- oh, okay.
But you mischaracterized my argument. So my argument would just be simply that there's millions more who aren't paying in than are. I don't understand why you're using that as some kind of ideal of, well, this is actually a good thing because they're paying millions of dollars to the federal government.
Yeah, if you
There's
increase,
more who aren't.
yeah, if you increase the amount of people paying into Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, it diversifies the amount of people. It means that there's more people paying in, which means there's less taken out per capita because we have more people paying in.
I see.
It's a good thing.
And can you answer me a question? Do we spend more money per year on Social Security than we take in?
At Light Schwab, the best just got better. Premium comfort and all-season grip.
The key to being rich, it's knowing what counts. It's investing. A little inspiration. Our financial advisors help clients find their rich.
Social Security, we are not allowed to spend more money on Social Security than we take in. However, the government regularly borrows from it, and so we pay interest on Social Security.
So we're
where the
paying
government
more?
has stolen from. Yeah, and I'm against that too.
So to get this right, what your plan's actually, the entailment of your plan is that you would give millions more people Social Security numbers who then the government would borrow against, and we would actually increase our debt because we spend more money per year on Social Security than we get out of Social Security. So, but hang on, by your metric then, if that's the case, and you just read that it was, then I would say that that would be a negative, and negative outcomes are to be avoided when we can, because that's bad and immoral.
I actually didn't agree to any of that. Just because there's more money in Social Security doesn't mean that the government will borrow from it. The government has a spending.
Okay, can you tell me the last year the government didn't borrow from Social Security? Can you tell me the last year the government didn't borrow from Social
Let me
Security?
just finish my statement before you freak the fuck
Go
out.
ahead,
Okay.
RTD.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, the government doesn't have to steal from Social Security. They don't have to.
But do
In
they?
fact, I think that we should actively work on electing people who promise not to steal from Social Security.
Yeah, can you tell me how much can you give me the last Democrat administration who didn't borrow from Social Security?
Probably not. I'm not a Democrat though.
Yeah, well, can you give me the last Democrat or even Republican that didn't borrow from Social Security?
I don't think anybody in my lifetime hasn't borrowed from Social
So
Security.
then would it stand to reason then that the trend would continue, that the government would continue to borrow money from Social Security and then accrue interest on that, thus actually, creating more in the way of debt, meaning that they're paying out more than they're taking in because they've accrued this additional debt?
No, because they're not taking the debt. The Social Security is not the debt. The reason that the government takes from Social Security is because it's somebody who will lend to them. Maybe if we were a little more strict on Social Security, they couldn't lend from Social Security. But I've seen no evidence that any amount of budgeting is ever going to stop our federal government from overspending. I don't think this is a very good argument. I don't think it's a good argument.
Well,
to say
that's totally-
more people pay into
That's
Social
totally
Security,
fair.
Therefore, the government will spend more money. I think that's pretty fucking loose.
Okay, then all you gotta do is show me the instance or the year in which the government was not taking in the Social Security payments from all of the benefactors and borrowing against it, thus creating debt. And
I think you're drawing.
I would
I
love
think
for
you're
you-
drawing a correlation without a causation there. I don't think that you could say that our net receipts for Social Security is why the government goes into more debt. I think you'd have a really hard time proving that.
Then why don't they put it in a lockbox?
Because they didn't listen to Al Gore. I don't know.
Why don't they?
Because they don't want to. They want to keep borrowing from it.
Why?
Because it's money that comes in every year.
So
So you
you
said-
wanted, so hang on,
Yeah.
so to get this right, the government wants to borrow all this Social Security money that comes in every year, which accrues debt, meaning that they're actually spending more money than they're paying, or I'm sorry, than they're getting, right? They're spending more money than they're getting from Social Security by borrowing it, yeah?
Yeah.
Great.
But they're
So
going to
then-
spend it. They're going to spend it.
Hang on, I just want to point this, I just want to point out, well, they won't spend it if it's not there, right?
Yes,
They'd
they
have to
will.
borrow from somewhere
Yeah,
else.
they'll just sell more They'll sell more treasury bonds.
Yeah, so under your.
And they'll
under-
sell it to billionaires.
so
and then
under
pay interest to
your-
billionaires instead of to Social
So
Security.
then under this economic plan, it actually makes no sense, because what you're saying is that all you would do is accrue more Social Security numbers for the government to accrue more debt from as we borrow against it.
No, I think
Okay,
that's-
tell
I
me
think
how
that's
that doesn't
so
work.
fucking loose.
Lord,
Tell me how it doesn't work that way.
I don't think there's any evidence that says if the government started taking in less Social Security that they would borrow less money. They would just borrow it from somebody else.
I'm sorry, hang on.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm
you're
sorry.
just saying that they would move to
I'm
borrowing elsewhere, right?
Yes,
Then-
they will
then
sell
that Then that's
treasury
their
bonds.
source,
They'll sell treasury bonds.
and that's bad, right?
What do you mean that's bad?
Well, according to this is not to be desired or approved of, yeah?
What's not?
Oh
Selling
my
treasury bonds?
God.
No, the fact that
This
they
is
would borrow
stupid.
from some other device other than Social Security.
What?
Dude,
Bro,
I don't
bro.
know how to make this any clearer.
Are you saying now I'm saying that the borrowing is bad? Is that where we're at now? I'm at my claim
Well,
is
you
now
said that
evolved
borrowing from
from
Social
mass
Security is
deportations
bad.
do more harm than good. No, you said that. You brought that up.
Borrowing from, well, then why would you want it in a lockbox?
You brought up the lockbox. That
And
was
you said we should do it.
No, you said why don't they? And I said they don't listen to Al Gore.
Okay, so then they should borrow from Social Security?
No, I don't think they should borrow at all. But that's just economically. I don't think that's like sometimes we need to borrow money. Like when we go to war, sometimes we have to borrow money. Sometimes we need to borrow money. We don't always have to borrow money.
Okay, got it. So do you think we shouldn't borrow money?
No, sometimes we should, sometimes we shouldn't.
Okay, so do you think that we should be borrowing money from Social Security?
Only if we absolutely have to.
Okay, so then we should avoid it, because after all, that would create a negative outcome, and we should avoid those when we can, right?
Sure, and if you increase, the action that I have a problem with is them borrowing from Social Security. This argument could be used to say we should no longer collect taxes at all. We should no longer be able to borrow money at all. And maybe that's your position, which I don't know if you're libertarian. Is that your position? That you can't borrow money at all?
You didn't say that.
No, I'm just wondering.
No.
I mean, I would be far more comfortable with that, but I'm not. That doesn't mean that I should abandon an immigration position because it gives the government access to more
I'm not
money.
saying you should abandon the immigration position, but you should abandon the immigration position that the government's going to intake far more money based on the fact that if we issue Social Security numbers, people are paying Social Security, because, and here's why you should abandon that
I never made
position.
that. That wasn't my claim. Again,
Okay,
I
then
don't
why
think-
should we give all these illegal immigrants? Then why, okay, then why should we give all of these, then why should we give all these illegal immigrants Social Security numbers again?
Because it makes the most fiscal sense.
Why?
Do I gotta read the opening statement again?
Because they pay in.
Do you read the
One,
opening
they pay in.
statement again?
Two,
Just answer the
if
question,
they are
bro.
here legally, they're more likely to
The
report things like crime. They invest into the schools locally.
Yeah, but let's just start with
they
Social
create-
Security.
Okay,
So on Social Security, you want them to pay in on Social Security, right?
sure,
And you want them to get the benefits of Social Security back out.
sure.
But if it's the case
Sure,
that when
sure,
the government
sure.
borrows from Social
Sure.
Security and they're giving them these outward payouts after they get these Social Security numbers, the government's going more into debt, this would go into your rule that would be a negative outcome, and we should avoid those when we can.
Shoot.
I think that borrowing is not as much of a negative outcome against Social Security.
Okay, why?
Because it's money that gets paid back.
So, wait a second, at interest?
Yeah, at interest.
Okay, then that would be a negative outcome which should be avoided because it
not all-
deliberately hurts the economy. That's your metric for bad.
But not all negative outcomes are the same. What you
Well,
you-
then we're
we no
back to
longer-
your
we no
definition
longer-
of bad. Deliberately hurting the economy, according to you, is bad.
We can no longer decide what. Oh yeah, so just all things are bad or good, and that's
According to you.
fucking thing.
According to you. According to you. I'm giving you
what's
the
most
discussion.
sensible thing to do.
Yes.
That's what I want to do, and I think the problem.
Yeah. So how? Yeah. So you
I'm
said
trying to tell you.
your definition of bad. I'm gonna. This is why we could clear up the semantics, but you're so fucking stupid. Now you're gonna be at the mercy of deliberately hurting deliberately hurting the economy.
Definition of bad all fucking day.
Yeah.
This is
Sorry. Sorry. You can be as bad as you want, bro, but it's not gonna make you win. Yes, it should be avoided. You say. Yes, it will have a negative outcome. Negative outcomes should be avoided when we can. You say that it's not. Why can't you avoid it?
Because I don't run Congress.
Okay, well then I guess we can't get legal social security numbers then, because you don't run Congress.
No, I can't.
No, I didn't say you, I said we.
Yeah. You and I cannot.
Okay, great. So then legals will never get social security numbers because we don't run Congress. What a
No, I
great
think it's because
argument.
you guys are afraid of brown people. I think that's mostly what it is.
Okay, I'm willing to dive into that argument as well. What have I said tonight that said that I was afraid of brown people, and what do Republicans do that makes them afraid of brown people?
I said you guys in
You
reference.
guys.
It seems like you're afraid
You
of brown
guys.
people.
Seems like that.
It does.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you justify those seemings with something more tangible?
Yeah, I said it in my opening statement. I said that I feel like you guys are you're unwilling to engage about policy and about prescriptions. And it seems, and I just said, I'm kind of left when you engage in anything that I said, other than let's define good and bad, and you don't want to debate, you don't want to engage in this debate. And I know like what your principles are. I've heard you debate before. Like you want your view to rule. You like the force principle. You think that your tiny minority of people should be like the ruling class, and people should rule that think like you. And I don't know why you have a problem with this. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Explain to me why you want people deported if economically it's going to hurt us.
So here's the thing. I'm willing to give you the social arguments for why I think that this would be good versus bad. I'm happy to do that. But I would like a concession from you first.
A concession.
That when I bring up, by your own definitions, what these things mean, and we could have easily...
I would like a
just,
concession,
if you would have
sir.
just been a modicum of good faith, and we could have got the definitions out of the way, we could have gotten into more of the meat like we were doing right then with Social Security.
Or we could just do that.
Yeah, but we were just doing that with Social Security, cried foul, and said when I applied it to your definition of bad, that wasn't fair.
I didn't say that.
Gingy,
Okay, well then why can't I apply it to your
I said-
definition?
just watching some YouTube, scrolling, drinking tea and exercising. What about you?
Sometimes things are bad and you deal with it. Sometimes bad things happen and you
But
just kind
you
of
also said that they
and I think that sometimes when we
A lot of
get
craziness on the internet, man.
is we never talk about any sort of solution because we're so goddamn serious about proving like our worldview and proving that the other person's worldview is somehow flawed. So we never actually get to discuss what I'm here to discuss, which is what's the most sensible way to deal with the fact that we've got a lot of illegal immigrants here and there's going to be a divide in this country on how to handle it.
Okay, we can move right into that then next. I'll humor you on this. I just want to point out, as you say this, that you said that negative outcomes should be avoided when we can, and then said there's things you just can't do anything about, which are bad. However, I just gave you an example of a negative outcome which could be avoided. You just said it's possible because you're not in charge of Congress. I think that that's fucking idiotic. But I'm happy to move on to the next point of this, which is what can we do about this, right? What can we do that's the most sensible? Well, okay, here's what we can do that's the most sensible. We can mobilize National Guard, put them on the border with orders to shoot and kill, and we can deport every immigrant who's here. That would not only save us a small fortune in the cost of drugs coming across the border, human trafficking costs, what we have to deal with the Department of Justice and all of these fronts, simply to not have people who are here. Yes, in fact, I'm going to give you one of the most comprehensive studies, one second, which will point out the human trafficking epidemic, which comes with...
Yeah, I think I might smoke today too.
I'm not supporting open borders. What?
I gotta re-up first, but I might do that later today. Give me some dabs.
People get here,
Most of them on visa overstays.
not from south of the border, right?
Certainly, it's like 90% of people that are here on almost everybody that we're picking up that's at work. They've been here for 15, 20 years. And most of them,
Visas?
or you can come here on vacation and you can just stay. Most people don't sneak across the border. Most people come across legally and stay.
Okay, so then it sounds like one possible way, solution that we can do to handle this is make sure that if you don't leave on your visa, that we have a system in place to come collect you quickly, then bar you from the nation for life.
I agree with that. I think we should do that.
Okay, yeah, I agree. So then as far as the solution comes, what we should do is bar you from life, you overstay on a visa. We have a system in place to come collect you very quickly if you do overstay on the visa. What's your objection to us deploying the United States military to the border to make sure that there's no illegal border crossings there with drugs?
I don't have an
human
objection to
trafficking?
that. I have no objection to that.
Okay, so then it sounds like the best thing that we can possibly do is remove the illegal immigrants who are here and also
That's where
make
we
it.
disagree. That's where we disagree on.
Okay, so let's just say for a second that I was willing to have a compromise with you. Every illegal immigrant who's here will grant them amnesty and give them all Social Security number. However, we are also going to deploy the United States military to the border. They're not going to allow any more illegal crossings, but they will have literal orders that these are invaders, right, and to repel them as an invasionary force, and that anybody who comes in and overstays their visa is banned for life, and that we have a new federal agency which goes and collects them as quickly as fucking possible to remove them. Would you agree to that compromise?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well then, what are we arguing here?
The mass deportations of the people that are here, the millions of people that are here already. The cost alone to deport these people is near $1 trillion. And
So
when I'm looking at these people that they're going and that they're rounding up, these people are doing no harm. These are people who are their only crime. Like 75% of the people from LA that they have rounded up, 75% of them have committed exactly one crime,
So
and that
what?
crime is being here illegally.
Yeah, so
So
what?
I think that the cost of doing that doesn't make any fucking sense, especially when we have this will permanently close some businesses. This will devastate local economies, and it will take a very long time to get back into those local economies and rebuild them. It's not like you remove them and all these job seekers come in and fill those jobs. Economically, it makes no sense. We're going to lose a bunch of tax revenue, and it's going to cost us like $1 trillion, plus all the things that you want to do as far as securing our southern border. We want to do, sure, yeah. Everything that we would do to secure our southern border, it's going to be incredibly expensive. I see no return on that investment. It makes absolutely fiscally no sense to remove people willing to work who are causing harm to nobody. Let them stay.
Do you agree with me that you should speak the language of the nation if
No.
you want? You don't agree with that?
You maybe finish it. Maybe there was a clear. Was there a qualifier at the end of that? I interrupted.
What?
I don't even think we need to go any further than that. You don't think that you should speak the language of the nation before we give you amnesty?
No, but I do think that you're going to be disadvantaged.
Yeah, but who else is disadvantaged by that?
By people not speaking the language. I don't know, maybe somebody who thinks they should get the job just because they speak English?
The
Well, how
employers?
about hospitals? How about schools? How about places like this where people don't speak the language and so additional resources need to be allocated to them so that they do speak the language?
I don't know that they're
Normally-
disadvantaged. I don't know that that's being disadvantaged, right?
Well, would
We
that
might have
be-
to, we might
Wouldn't
have
that
to
be a
spend more in
disadvantage
resources.
to our native born people to have to outsource this into now special categorizations just to get these people up and running with basic words in English?
No, I don't see how that
No?
disadvantages anybody.
So you don't think that schools spending
It's not an advantage, is it?
resources with ELS is disadvantageous to the native born people that could be collecting those resources?
Well, I think we're going to be collecting those tax. We're going to be collecting new taxes anyways. I think maybe if
Well,
local.
now
I think
schools
that
are,
like
that's
I've seen,
assessed by property
like
taxes.
I've seen proposals where people part of like the amnesty is that they have a remittance fee. Maybe it's a 1% tax. I'm actually okay with that too. If there are local costs that are going to be applied to the local economy, I think local communities should be able to assess that tax.
Yeah, so anyway, back to the ELS thing. How could it be possible that your property tax assessment, which is going towards schools along with generous federal grants, which are going to schools, how is it possible that they'll be spending less resources by not hiring ELS specific educators to train English first language to these other people instead of utilizing those resources on the locality of the natives who are there, who are paying through their local property taxes for the education of their children?
I didn't say they wouldn't pay more taxes. I said nobody would be disadvantaged.
How would that not be disadvantageous to the people paying more taxes?
Because, look, I just said, you're adding people into the pool of taxpayers, and if you want to pass that cost...
Not property tax.
And...
Not property tax.
They pay property tax all the time. And
They only pay property tax if they own property. Can you tell me how many of these people own property?
I just said as tenants.
Oh, as tenants they pay property. No, as tenants they don't pay property
They
tax.
indirectly pay
rent.
tax.
No, they don't indirectly pay it. No.
Yes, they do.
No, it's directly assessed from the owner.
Listen, I don't know.
Yes, I'm a landholder. Yes, that's correct.
I don't know a single landlord that doesn't factor in property taxes when they charge rent.
Okay, so wait a second. So who's paying the property tax?
I said indirectly. Indirectly,
so
they're paying property tax.
So then they're
It's
not paying property taxes.
Well, the landlord isn't being disadvantaged. He's already paying that money into the community.
No, the landlord may not have as high property tax assessment if they didn't have to spend more on localized school for things like language assessment, right?
Yeah, taxes go up to pay for education. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so taxes. So what you're saying here then is that the net drain from people who don't even speak the language of the nation, there's going to be a net drain on landholders because their
I just
property,
said they could pay a 1% tax.
their property taxes would necessarily go up. Even if you had a 1% remittance fee, can you show me the math on how that would offset the local property taxes?
I said a 1% tax or a remittance fee.
But the remittances are assuming that these monies are going to go back to Mexico, right?
What?
The remittances are assuming that this money is going to go elsewhere to a different nation.
No, I don't know if it assumes that.
Then how do you get remittances?
Maybe I'm using the word remittances incorrectly.
Yeah, probably, dumbass.
I think you are.
I might be.
How do you get a remittance?
I don't know. Let me look it up.
Yeah, I'm using the word.
Yes, you're using the word wrong.
Let me look it up.
Whoa. The biggest ads of the year are finally here. A huge celebration of creativity on the world's biggest stage. After months of hard work and millions of dollars,
It's not a very bright day today. Looks pretty cloudy outside so far.
What's your idea? Go to artlist.io and start creating without me.
Hello, .com like normal, you dumb folks. .io. Hello.
The title of this video is Inside the New York Town Invaded by Welfare-Addicted Jews.
Oh, I didn't realize that was over with. Epstein is truly evil. Islam or Christianity, which is true.
You think superior... You think superiority means in terms of status, earthly status, and how many followers there are of that. Hold on a second, your time is up, sir. You have enough of your time. You have enough of your time. No, I'm answering what you were saying. I'm answering what you were saying.
No, if you want to have further answers on that question, you can, for example, consult Metropolitan Callistus, where you can consult many of the numbers actually. He passed away.
I can't consult him then unless I pray to the saints like he did.
Have you ever heard of books?
Yes, I have.
Then read his book.
Have you ever heard of books? Oh yeah.
This is Christianity or Islam, which is true. I'm going to introduce you to the debaters. Going first, Apostate Prophet is who I'll also be introducing first. He has debated heavyweight debaters, including Andrew Wilson, Dr. Abdul Mahid, and Dr. Javad Hashmi of Harvard, and also runs the YouTube channel known as Apostate Prophet, which has over 600,000 subscribers. Please join me in welcoming Apostate Prophet. Also, please join me in welcoming Jake Brancatella, like we said, back all the way back to DebateCon. That was 4. No, it was Modern Day Debate live and in person. Very experienced debator, has debated popular atheists and Christian intellectuals, and runs the channel Jake Brancatella 2.0, which is focused on making the intellectual case for Islam. Please join me in welcoming as well Jake Brancatella. Thanks for being with us. With that, we're going to jump right into it. So I have the timer set for you, Apostate Prophet. The floor is all yours for your 15-minute opening statement. Oh, that's right.
So first I want to thank James for organizing this debate as always, and I want to thank everybody for coming here, and also Jake for offering this debate and going through with it. The question today is about whether Christianity or Islam is true. It is Christianity or Islam, which one is true? I will lay out the foundation and the basics of Christian belief. I will lay out Islam in its response to Christianity, and finally I will present that Islam refutes itself and is therefore not true. How do we verify if Islam is true or not? How do we verify if Christianity is true or not? The Quran repeatedly tells the reader to believe its claims because it is a clear book, a clear sign of Allah, easy for all to see, and that people simply have the obligation to believe it, that they will be punished if they do not. It doesn't expect you to establish complex philosophical systems. It makes claims about the things that Allah did and does in the world, and asks the reader to then go on and believe what it says. It says, for example, that the Quran was clearly authored by Allah, and that therefore you should believe in it or refute it if you can by producing something better. Christianity doesn't appeal to complex metaphysics and lengthy philosophical speculations either. Christianity rests on revelation and on history. And in the case of Christianity, the revelation can be verified and the history be tested and confirmed. If Jake was a Christian, he would be fully capable of giving a lengthy, convincing speech on why the Trinity is, of course, the best way to explain the nature of God, and a room full of Christians would be very happy to agree with him. As a Muslim, he's also fully capable of giving a very convincing speech about Islamic theology, and a room full of Muslims will also happily agree with him. But once again, that is not how God gives us his revelations. Not in Islam, not in Christianity. This is only how we confirm our own beliefs once we accept them. Revelation is for all, for the average person, for the reader, for the wanderer. We affirm the teachings and the theology of our religion based on the revelation that we receive. If we take revelation first and then affirm its explanation of God and reality, then we are taking and affirming what God himself gave us. If we take philosophical stance as the foundation first, and then establish a certain theological view, and judge revelation based on that, we are affirming what Jake Brancatella, or you, or I, regular people, gave us, and subjecting God to our human minds. So the question is, what did God give us? Which revelation reflects reality? Which revelation is true by its own merits? This is how revelation expects us to arrive at the truth. With that in mind, we can now examine Christianity and Islam as they represent themselves. Christianity claims that God acted in history throughout the person of Jesus Christ, not as one prophet or lawgiver among others, but as God incarnate entering his own creation to participate in our world and to come to our level to take us all, without exception, to himself. Jesus lived in a specific time under a known government, was executed by the Roman state under Pontius Pilate, and rose bodily from the dead. It appeals to history. Jesus of Nazareth existed. He was crucified under Pontius Pilate. Scholars of antiquity overwhelmingly agree with this. Immediately after his execution, his followers publicly proclaimed that he rose bodily from the dead. They proclaimed this in Jerusalem, the very place where the claim could have been disproven instantly by producing a body, which, however, never happened. Instead, Christianity spread immediately, within the lifetime of the eyewitnesses, first among Jews, people who had no expectation of a crucified Messiah, and absolutely no tolerance for the worship of a man. Something very real about Christianity shifted people's minds. Then it spread among the Gentiles, and it took off. Even Christianity's most influential early spokesman, Paul, admitted that if the resurrection did not happen, then Christianity is futile. And that is not how a fabricated religion speaks of itself. False religions protect themselves with ambiguity. Christianity puts everything on one falsifiable claim. Paul wrote in one of the most historically well-authenticated letters of the New Testament to the Corinthians, in which he pointed out that 500 of his brethren saw Jesus alive after he was crucified and died. The important thing here to note is that he doesn't say this to prove to people that it happened. He simply repeats it as a reminder. He repeats a creed that he himself took from people before him, of what people saw and therefore all together believe. And this happened long before he was a Christian. Anyone could have refuted this at the time by saying, what are you talking about? We haven't seen Jesus after he was crucified, but nobody made such an objection. That is why Christianity can be tested. If it fails, then it deserves to fail. But it's the resurrection of Christ, who even according to Muslims was born of a virgin, which in the culture and context clearly indicates that he did not have an earthly father, is the foundation of Christianity and is historically supported. The resurrection also led the mass to believe and affirm that Jesus is not a mere human, but rather the divine himself, who defeated death and is the savior of all. It is the reason why Christianity exists and why it grew so rapidly. Now we turn to Islam. Let's see what Islam says about all this. And what matters here is not merely what Islam says about itself, but rather what Islam claims about Christianity, about Jesus, the gospel, and about Christian scripture. According to the Quran, the gospel was revealed by Allah to Jesus. It is described as guidance and light. Christians in Muhammad's own time are directly addressed and told, as you can see, that the gospel they have in their time, they possess, was revealed by Allah himself, and that they are commanded to judge by it. It further says that Christians have nothing to stand upon unless they judge by the gospel revealed by Allah. The Quran doesn't say that the Christians once had a gospel. It doesn't say the gospel was lost. It doesn't say the gospel was corrupted. It never does. It never says that the gospel is no longer reliable or no longer trustworthy. It says the gospel is with them. It says they are to stand upon it. It says they are accountable to it, and it is from Allah. Later, however, the Quran condemns Christian beliefs and demands their conversion to Islam. I'm not pretending that the Quran is actually consistent. I would never make such a claim. But these commitments don't just disappear because later statements contradict the earlier ones. The Quran reacted to its environment and its developing interactions with Christians. So its later hostile perspective does not erase its very clear confirmation of the readily available Christian scripture and faith. Muslims today try to escape this by claiming that the gospel has been corrupted, but that attempt fails completely. First off, there is no Quran verse which explicitly says that the gospel has been corrupted. It says Allah's words cannot be corrupted, and Muslims later on interpret this as only exclusively referring to the Quran, although this is never specified. Secondly, if the gospel was corrupted before Muhammad, then this means Allah failed to preserve his own revelation, which he called guidance and light, and then he explicitly commanded the Christians in his time to follow a corrupted book. If it was corrupted after Muhammad, then the problem is that we know exactly what the gospel was that Muhammad himself affirmed in his time, because it is the same gospel that we have today. The oldest manuscripts and earliest manuscripts that we have predate Muhammad by centuries. They are identical to today's gospel contents. So there is no lost text, there is no missing gospel. The Christians of Muhammad's time believed exactly what Christians believe today. That Jesus is divine, that he is the Son of God, that God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That Jesus was crucified and he rose from the dead. This is not a later invention. It was neither invented around Muhammad's time, nor in the 2nd century, by the way. It is present in the Gospels, in Paul, in the New Testament, and in the earliest Christian writings. There was never a Christianity that was compatible with Islam. Some Muslims will argue that there were early disagreements among Christians on Christology and on the exact nature of God, and how it is precisely defined. But these debates don't help Islam in any way, especially not in this debate. For example, Jake likes to bring up that Justin Martyr had a different view on the role of Jesus in relation to the Father. But even if we grant that, I'm not going to argue against it, Justin Martyr affirmed fully, as we read in his writings, with devotion, as Jake himself I'm sure will admit, that Jesus is God, that he is the Son, that he is the incarnate Word of God. He said this in his debate with Jay Dyer, for example, that Jesus was resurrected, that salvation is only through Jesus. There is not a single significant Christian figure of relevance who completely denied that Jesus is the Son, that he is divine, and that he was resurrected. And here we reach the most decisive point. The Quran doesn't only affirm the Gospel, the Quran also affirms in chapter 3, verses 53 to 55, the guidance and elevation of Jesus' disciples and those who believe in him, as opposed to those who did not believe in him and wanted him crucified, and promises that Allah will make them superior over the disbelievers until the last day. Let me emphasize this one more time. The Quran says, I will deliver you from those who disbelieve and elevate your followers above the disbelievers until the day of judgment. The Quran says this to Jesus. The disciples, the followers of Jesus, will be made superior until the last day. So who are these followers? They are the Christians of today. Christians of the first century. Christians who affirm their faith in the crucified and resurrected Christ, who is the Son, who is God. Christians who believe in one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They are the disciples, as is also very clear from the context in the Quran, in verse 53, where it specifically refers to them as the disciples of Jesus. They are the apostles. Among them is Paul, whom the disciples and apostles of Jesus, first of Peter, approved of and worked together with in spreading the gospel. Paul is attacked by Muslims. He cannot be removed. He's very early. He's historically secure. Everything seems to go back to him in the most historically secure and authenticated way. He was approved by Peter himself, who was chosen by Jesus. This is known. If Paul corrupted Christianity, if it was all Paul's fault, if he is the one who corrupted Christianity and invented something new and something evil and false, then this means Peter, the primary disciple of Jesus, endorsed corruption and falsehood. And if Peter endorsed corruption and falsehood, then Jesus chose corrupt disciples. And at that point, Muslims must stop claiming to respect Jesus. If you attack and try to discredit Paul, you are directly insulting Jesus. There is no way out of this. And this creates a huge dilemma for Islam. The sentiments of Muslims claiming to respect Jesus, but actually not respecting him aside, as we just established, the Quran itself affirms that God guided, or Allah guided and elevated these very people, the disciples and followers of Jesus. So either the Quran is wrong about Jesus' followers, or the Quran itself affirms Christianity as true. If the Quran says Allah guided the true followers of Jesus, and history tells us who those followers were, then Christianity is affirmed by Islam's own standards. The problem is that while Islam inadvertently affirms Christianity as true, Christianity and Islam cannot both be true. Islam denies the crucifixion, Islam denies the resurrection, denies the sonship of Christ, and denies the divinity of Jesus. In short, Islam denies and condemns what it initially affirms to be true. So Islam confirms Christianity, but also condemns everything Christians believe in. The Quran even affirms the virgin birth, where the entire point of the virgin birth is that Jesus has no earthly father, but rather is the divine Son of God. That's the entire context of it. So I'm not saying that the Quran intentionally affirms Christianity. It does so unintentionally, because it misunderstands the Christian beliefs that it initially adopts and confirms. The Quran affirms just enough to then completely itself, then tries to walk it back, but it's way too late at that point. It simply does not work. So we arrive at the conclusion. If Christianity is true, then Islam is false. By the standards of revelation and truth, Christianity is true. By Islamic standards, Christianity is true, and therefore Islam is false. James, how much time do I have?
1 minute and 17 seconds.
All right, I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that opening from AP. We will kick it over to Jake. And as I reset the timer, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsor, the Gospel of Truth YouTube channel, and their conference is coming up in just a week. That's in the Dallas area. Check out that link in the description box. And if you happen to be watching online, don't forget to hit that big, beautiful like button. We appreciate your support.